This is Jocko Podcast number 42 with Echo Charles and me, Jocko Willink. Good evening, Echo.
Good evening.
Now, in podcast number 11, we brought on Leif Babin, who was the Charlie Platoon commander. And Charlie Platoon was a part of Task Unit Bruiser. Obviously, Leif is one of my brothers. Guy wrote the book Extreme Ownership with, so that's Leif, Charlie Platoon. And when he was on that first podcast, we talked about a bunch of things, but one of the main focuses of our conversation was some of the brothers that we lost. Mark Lee, who was the first SEAL killed in Iraq. We talked about Biggles, Ryan Job, who was gravely wounded in Ramadi and who later died after complications from a surgery to repair those wounds. And finally, we talked about Chris Kyle, who was also in Charlie Platoon, was the lead sniper and point man, and who ended up writing the book American Sniper, which was, turned into a very successful movie. And Chris, as you know, was senselessly murdered as he tried to help out a fellow veteran. And on that podcast, we didn't talk in any depth at all about Mikey Mansour, who is another one of our brother SEALs from Task Unit Bruiser, who was also killed in Ramadi. And if you don't know, Mikey was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor after he smothered a grenade with his body in order to save 3 of our other teammates. And one of the reasons I didn't want to focus on Mikey during that podcast is because Mikey was in Delta Platoon as opposed to Charlie Platoon. There's 2 platoons in the task unit, Charlie and Delta. And Leif was the platoon commander, and Tony Afrati, who was on the podcast as well, he was the platoon chief. And before I went and talked about Mikey, I wanted to bring somebody from Delta Platoon on the podcast. It's a little bit trickier than it sounds because most of the guys from Delta Platoon are still active duty. And the ones that aren't active duty, they're not around. I couldn't get a hold of them, or if I get a hold of them, they were busy, or they were out of the area. So it's just been hard. It's been a challenge. But I did want to wait. And finally, and today, we're lucky because I got one of my good bros here, a guy by the name of Andrew Paul, who was the assistant platoon commander in Delta Platoon, Task Unit Bruiser, SEAL Team 3.